Now, I want to now open the gate wider. If you live in Dar al-Kufr, you don't control the food supply and you don't control the food chain. There are contaminants in the food chain. And I'm going to start to explain what these contaminants are. The United States, through General Mills and Kellogg's, have attempted to corner the market on most breakfast cereals on the planet. Having worked in a General Mills silo and a Kellogg's silo, when they make their Raisin Bran or their Frosted Flakes, there's a stipulated amount of grubs or maggots that's allowed per box of cereal, which is 45 or 50. So per every box of cereal that you buy, Raisin Bran, Frosted Flakes, Kellogg's Rice Krispies, Sugar Corn Pops, Count Chocula. Some of those raisins, Brother Iskander, aren't raisins at all, Akhi. But the amount is so small, some of that dust isn't dust at all. It's the pulverized corpses of whatever fell into the machine or the vats after the cereal was made. For us, we implement the law of contaminants. So it doesn't mean anything to us in the school of Imam Ahmed. We consume it. For people that want to have a stringent attitude, then now they need to look into it. I guess you can't eat anything made by Kellogg's or General Mills, which brings your cereal tastes down extremely low because they dominate the market. But for those following the contaminants rule, we can't worry about that. There's a contaminants rule when you eat, because these are contaminants rules in usul al-fiqh, and the kuffar have the contaminant rules. How many times have you read on the back of a chocolate bar or candy bar may contain traces of nuts? Why? Because it's contaminants. They're not just making one thing. You go to a restaurant, you ask if there's any peanuts or nuts on the menu. Why? Because it's contaminants in a kitchen. Everyone's washing their hands and doing everything. It's still contaminants. When you eat at a restaurant, when you order food, when you buy your local breakfast food, if you buy oatmeal or what they call porridge on the mainland, there's a certain amount of it that's sawdust or corn dust. It's contaminants. Butter is going to have certain contaminants in it because there's insects that will fall into it, gnats and other things. But they're so small, they get either boiled or pulverized, but it is there. By law, they have to end. If you write to them or ask them for a comprehensive ingredients list, they will send you every single thing that's in there. What you see on the box is only something abbreviated. Wow. You see, people think they live in this perfectly sterile world. If they knew that there were dust mites in their favorite breakfast cereal, they'd fix their attitude. Wow. That's just, they need to fix their attitude, Yahi. There's contaminants. Now, with this doctrine and principle around contaminants, there's a relation that the Hanbalis make between contaminants and Istibdaal.
Right.
So, when you buy a product, people might worry about E numbers and things like this.
Yes.
We have to understand what an ingredients list entails. There's the blue book that I discussed before on the physical fraud on what's in what we eat. Now that book gives an extensive layout of how ingredient lists work. The first 5 ingredients are the 3/4 and half of what make up the product.
Okay.
Every ingredient after is 5% and less. And as you go down, as you go further in the ingredients, the amounts become less. Now, what you see on the ingredients list isn't all of what's in there.
Okay.
It's just most of what, so it's from the majority to 5%.
Oh.
Anything that's 4% and less is not listed in the general ingredients. You have to write them and ask them for the comprehensive ingredients. Then they'll tell you, are we responsible for the comprehensive ingredients? Usul of the law of contaminants as well as Istibdaal? No. No. Because those things are so small, they're not even on our tongue. They don't even have a threshold for taste on our tongue. And they're so small, and the way that they've been intermingled into the product, they can't be separated from it. Mm-hmm. It's not like something's fallen into a container and you pull it right out. Like in the case of the mouse falling into some food. It's not like that. It's something that's gone into it. It's become part of it. Mm-hmm. And you can't separate it. But it's such a small amount that it's not the majority of a product. What's the majority? More than 50%. Mm-hmm. It's less than that. And it's less than that to the point that it's 5%.
Yeah.
So when you start falling below 5%, it's like you can't even separate it anymore. If you wanted to boil it down or to make that product into a liquid form, to remove that item, you can't. Mm-hmm. Because it's become part of the item. So the law of Istibdaal and contaminants is we eat it. Mm-hmm. Oh. We eat it. Okay. Now, mm-hmm. Then we come to, what about most soft drinks? Because some soft drinks, they use alcohol as a catalyst for the fizz. You know, when you open a carbonated drink like 7-Up, Coca-Cola, that fizz, when you open it, the catalyst for that is alcohol. Mm-hmm. Now, this then brings a question. Oh. Now, I asked this question 21 years ago. Sheikh Muhammad Hasan Ash-Shinqiti. I said, what do we do about this? He said, and he brought up exactly the principle of contaminants and Istibdaal, because Maliki. He said, this depends. He said, if it was only used as the catalyst to cause something, and it's not in the product, it's permitted. But if it permeates the product where it's a product, because it's a liquid, mm-hmm. And what do we talk about? If it's in a liquid form, we don't come near it, mm-hmm. As per the asl in that hadith. So if it was in a liquid form, then now you can't consume it. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's the circumstance when we talk about these types of things, the cattle, 7-Up, Mr. Pibb, Dr. Pepper, right? All these types of things. The only thing, now, if you wanted to, the only thing you could drink that was different to that is if you drank Selecto or anything, because Selecto was made by Bo'alem Company. It's from Algeria. It's a Muslim brother. Those are Muslims. That company's been around since 1899. And they don't use white sugar for their carbonated drinks. They use honey in their carbonated drinks. And it's a great drink. When I was in London, I drank in London all the time. I wouldn't drink any other fizzy drinks except for Selecto. Mm-hmm. And they've got about 11 different types of drinks. So if somebody wants to avoid that and switch to Selecto, okay. Mm-hmm. But it's not an issue for us. But if you're going to try to adopt the strictest position, I suppose it would be for the person trying to adopt the strictest position. Because our asl goes back to the law of contaminants, Istibdaal, and it's the same principle that we look at, if you remember, when we studied over the Book of Water. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if it's something where a large amount's been added to a small amount's been added to something that hasn't changed the color, taste, or smell, still tahur, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? That's what happens. But when it's the majority of it, if it's a small amount, and it's a liquid, and so what happens? It becomes najis. Mm-hmm. A small amount. But if it's a large amount and it doesn't permeate it, it stays tahur. Yes. And then if something's najis and you want to make it tahir again, you do what? You add more water to do what? It causes what? Istibdaal. Mm-hmm. You understand now? So it's taking it from, you're changing the state of najis water by adding such an abundance of tahur water. Mm-hmm. You actually change it back to
Mhm.
tahur water.
SubhanAllah.
That's what happened. That's what happened with vinegar. It went through this process to where it became tahir again. The animal that crawled inside of what later became the fig started off as najis, transformed, went through istibdal, started off as a contaminant, went through istibdal, then it becomes tahir. We eat figs.
Right.
Technically, we're eating bugs. The dinosaurs that we put in our car every day when we buy gasoline. That's all dinosaur fossils and plant fossils that have been pulverized to the point that they became a liquid. So we're using liquefied Tyrannosaurus Rex and Brontosaurus and Stegosaurus and Triceratops and putting them in our car. But we're agreed it's tahir though.
Right.
Gasoline is tahir. Don't drink it, yeah. But it's tahir. I don't know, brother said, well, it's tahir. That means I should drink it. No, you don't drink it. But it's tahir. If you get it on your hands, you get it on your clothes, it's tahir.
Mhm.
Why? Because these animals, some of these dinosaur animals, if we look at the ahkam on, they would have been najis. But they went through a process, contaminants, istibdal, became something else.
Mhm.
Now it's tahir. We put it in our car, we ride around, we think life is good. Same thing with our tires. Pulverized animals and stuff that was transformed. Istibdal was made into rubber. Now there we are.
SubhanAllah.
Istibdal and stuff happens around us, right? Iron gets made into steel, right? Bronze gets made into copper, right? That's
Mhm.
istibdal happens around us. Happens in food. This doesn't happen in food. It happens in metals as well. This started off as iron, then it became steel through istibdal. It started off as bronze, and it became copper. That's how this stuff works.
Mhm. And when you say istibdal, do you differentiate it from contaminants?
Well, there's a relation between contaminants
Right.
and istibdal. So they're two different things, but there's a relation
Mhm.
between them. Because when a contaminant gets into something, the grubs that went into your raisin bran after the raisin bran was cooked and made, they've been crushed and pulverized to the point you'd probably have to have a telescope or not a telescope, but a microscope
Mhm.
to really get into the nitty gritty. Okay, how much of this in here is bugs or whatever else?
Mhm.
You wouldn't be able to perceive it with your naked eye.
Mhm.
How many dust mites were in your sugar corn pops? You wouldn't be able to perceive
Right.
it.
Sure.
Or the next time, what do you eat? Muesli? The next time you're eating your muesli or your bran flakes, you wouldn't be able to tell that those are pulverized fruit flies or pulverized mosquitoes. You wouldn't be able to tell with your naked eye
Absolutely.
because the contaminant went in there. Then while it was in there, because of pressure, it underwent some change.
Mhm.
And because it underwent some change, how do you separate it from the product?
Right.
You can't now use the hadith, oh, whatever intoxicate. No, it's not that anymore.
Mhm. SubhanAllah.
Something else now.
So I remember once a reading that there is 0.1% ethanol in lemonade in the shops.
Yes.
So, but
But
since
that's naturally occurring because, as
that's
we
natural.
discussed, all citrus fruit has a certain amount of ethanol in it.
Okay. Mhm.
It produces it. All your citrus fruits, orange, lemon, lime, all of your citrus fruits and other fruits besides, like the apple and the banana. Now I want to talk about another issue of contaminants. Okay. Most of the fruit, apples, oranges,
Mhm.
to guarantee a safer passage in the trip, they're coated with a pork coating.
Oh wow.
It's a transparent pork. You know that luster that you see on apples when you sometimes
Yes.
walk in the
Yes.
shop? That's what that is.
Oh yes. SubhanAllah. Mhm.
And that luster is that.
SubhanAllah.
Now we have to talk again.
Okay.
We have to talk again. We have to talk again, Yahi. Because, okay, someone says, well, it might be on the front of the orange, but I can peel the orange. Fine. Matters resolved. You want to eat your minuscule amount of ethanol in your orange? That's fine for you. You want to have your minuscule amount of ethanol in your lemon and your lime? You go right ahead. But now you've got a problem, though, with the apple and other similar fruits like it that have a skin that's thin, because the ethanol has seeped in through the skin into the fruit itself. Now, if you want to be a purist, well, I'm going to get out a butter knife and scrape it off. Yeah, but you still have another problem, though. It's gone through the skin.
Yes.
It didn't just stop at the skin and say, we are the pork coating, we shall not pass.
It absorbs.
No, it absorbed into it. That's what gives it that luster. That's why when you cut them open, it'll still have that little bit of luster inside as well, which shows it went into the actual fruit.
Yes.
But it is such a minuscule amount of that coating. Pork is only added to give it a more solid jelly feel. The most of what that coating is honey, brown sugar, and hot water. It's almost the same mixture that's used for IQFing when you freeze fish in a cannery. They just add the pork because it's a solidifier, but it gives fruit that luster. That's what draws people to it in the shops. Oh, wow, look, it's shiny.
Yeah.
Right? When you see a Granny Smith apple, wow, look at that. You see the red one, ooh, that's so pretty. Yeah, you go ahead and buy it. It keeps the bananas ripe for longer. Because remember, they already artificially ripened the fruit when they shipped it from South America by using ethanol gas to artificially ripen it. So it had ethanol pumped into it.
Allah.
Then when it got there on the way, they used that coating, the pork coating, to make sure that it doesn't go overripe. So when it arrives, it's okay. So you've had two incidents. Now, for people that want to be purists, how far you want to go? How far you want to go? Fine. You don't want to say, we're Hanbalis in this. Well, I don't want to say that. Okay, don't say it. Just follow it.
Yeah.
Fine, don't say it then. Just follow it, though. Because my whole point in saying all of this is you think you live in a sterile, perfect world, and you don't. You don't.
And we can't.
Especially if you live in Dar al-Kufr. You don't live, if you don't control the food supply. Remember, the people that are picking the fruit, preparing the food, sending it down the line, inspecting it, and packaging it, 9 times out of 10, they're not Muslim. The people that are preparing the clothes that you buy out here, if you buy clothes, if your clothes aren't tailor-made, 9/10 of my clothes are tailor-made. But if they're not tailor-made, if you're not a maniac like me, and you buy your clothes, you want to buy your acid wash and your Levi's from the shop, there's inspectors that have to try them on at the clothing booths as they run down the conveyor belts. That's why sometimes you put your hand in your pocket, a brand new pair of jeans or a brand new shirt, and it'll have a sticker with a circle. It'll be a circular sticker and it has a number on it, like 241631. That's the inspector's number that inspected it. And part of the inspector's job is to try it on. Now, they're not Muslim. So are you going to take every piece of clothing home and wash it? Okay, that's all right. Fine, do that. Wash your socks before you wear them. Okay. Wash your pants. You're not going to try on the pants, though, before you buy them? Nope, because Kafir war. Okay, fine. Fine.
Wow. Some people tend to neglect that, though.
Yeah, they don't realize, okay, so you want to buy a jacket? Well, we don't know whether he was bare-chested or not when he tried it. We don't know. We don't know whether he was sweating. We don't know anything. You want to try on you want to wear a New York Yankees baseball cap and look like a buffoon, like those hip-hop idiots? All right, but just to let you know, an inspector had to try that on too. And we don't know whether he was sweating. We don't know.
Yeah, and you know, like if he's a kafir, a dog could have licked his hand.
That's it. We don't know.
He rubbed some alcohol on his chest.
That's it. We have no idea. And we also don't know what the circumstances, because if you don't work in a seamstress factory and you've never worked in a seamstress factory, you don't know. The same thing. There was a year where I picked fruit for a year with some of the Mexicans on the West Coast, and I can tell you, the grapes and other stuff like that, that's not a sterile environment.
Wow.
There's people that come back from the bathroom having not washed their hands, Yahi. Forget istinja. They didn't wash their hands before or after. They're picking your fruit. Yeah, it gets hosed down, But after it gets hosed down, people have to package it.
Yes.
All of them are wearing gloves. All of them are washing their hands like me. No. You see, people have funky ideas about how our food reaches us, how our drinks reach us. They have funky ideas. And those ideas are mythology. As someone who worked at a slaughterhouse or an abattoir, I've worked there. I've worked in food prep. I've worked at a cannery where fish are prepared. I've worked at General Mills and I've worked at these places. I was a fisherman for a period of time. There's nothing sterile about those environments. It's just not. You're either in the open air or you're in a building where there's sometimes animals are coming in, or there's flies and gnats and everything that are coming in. There's sawdust and stuff that's happening. People think they live in a world where the meat just comes perfect or the food comes perfect. You have to live in the real world. And so I say all that to say this. Follow these rulings regarding contaminants and istibdaal in Dar al-Kufr, because it puts your mind at ease, makes things simpler for you, and puts your heart at rest rather than killing yourself to do a whole bunch of other things. Because if you try to follow some of the other rulings, some of the other ulama have said, you cannot realistically discharge those things in Dar al-Kufr. You cannot. You simply cannot. There is no one madhahib that runs Dar al-Kufr. They don't care about that stuff. They don't care about what's halal and they don't care. They just don't. And so when contaminants and things like this happen, oh, I'll just buy it because it says it's for vegetarians. Yeah. How much of the product is vegetarian though? You do know that a product is designated vegetarian or vegan according to how much percentage of it is. Doesn't mean it all completely is. You see, this is another thing. Then you ask for a comprehensive ingredients list and find out that the product doesn't have all veggies in it. They never told you it has all veggies.
Exactly.
It says it's suitable for vegetarians, meaning what? In majority, it's suitable. That doesn't mean everything in there is vegan. That's not true. That's why that vegan thing was suitable for vegetarian, that's trademarked, because a vegan or vegetarian, that's a trademark. See, you have to live in the real world. And I'm not laughing out of mockery. I'm laughing because it's just, we have to be real with this stuff because people aren't being honest with themselves.
I mean, upholding this stricter position, it's going to be then impossible, we can say.
If it's not impossible, you're going to be an individual in which you do not eat breakfast cereals. You don't drink any carbonated drinks at all. You don't eat any breakfast cereals at all. You might have chickens where you slaughter them in your backyard.
No fruit?
Fruit, you will have to perhaps order your own fruit. Maybe Germany doesn't have the coating, maybe. Because not everyone in mainland Europe does the coating. You'll have to find out. So you'll have to start Googling online. Okay, who doesn't have the coating on the fruit and veg? Because veg has it as well. Okay, who doesn't have the coating on the fruit and veg? Then you have to start looking at canned goods. Wait a minute. Before this was canned, did it have the coating? And in addition to that, when they can it, there's a lining that goes around the inside of the can to help as a preservative. That lining that was sprayed on the inside of the can before they canned the fruit or veg, what's in that?
SubhanAllah. Can't get away.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing because it's not funny, but it's just when people understand about the food supply.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just have to realize the grim reality of the food supply. Because you've got to find out, okay, when they canned it, there was a coating that they sprayed in there to preserve the inside of the can from rotting the canned goods. Okay, what's in that? Then they put the product in. All right. Now there's a liquid that they put, either water or brine that went in there. Is there something else in that liquid?
Subhanallah.
So there's the coating, there's the liquid. Then was there coating on the fruit or the fruit and the veg? Then they finally put the other can and they sealed it. Okay, that's it now. So now you buy the product, which may have 3 coatings, and we don't know what's in the preservative liquid. But you just, yeah, man. I just listen. You want to be super duper strict or whatever else? Can your own food. Then you have your bread. Do you go to a local bakery and buy fresh bread every morning? Or do you go to the grocery store and buy the bread? It's contaminants.
Yes, absolutely, a lot of.
What are mono and diglycerides? Well, you'll have to find out. Why is the bread so soft on the middle, but the outer crust is hard? What's causing that? Those are called mono and diglycerides. What are those? I think you need to look up animal protein, because that's mono and diglycerides. Oh my God, it's everywhere. That's what I've been telling you. Unless you go to a local bakery where they bake the bread every morning. Okay, so you go there. Now you can ask, hey, what's the ingredients that go into your bread every morning? Okay, so for bread, you can probably pull off purity for bread. Well, okay, listen, I buy fresh baked bread every morning. Okay, all right, so your bread's probably accounted for. Now I don't know about the people that are making the dough, whether they're washing their hands or not. That's a contaminant.
Yes.
You might be at risk for exposure to E. coli or COVID, long COVID. But alhamdulillah, it's fresh bread every morning. It's got no pork in it. It's got no mono or diglycerides, but you may get long COVID. You may get E. coli.
You see, that's the whole thing, because a lot of people, a lot of Muslims are really living in fear and anxiety because of these issues.
Yes.
I've known someone who was really in panic constantly about this stuff. Panicking constantly about what's in the food and just researching literally each and every ingredient and just panicking about almost every product that I used to buy. Yeah. But I mean, this is impossible way to live like this.
No, you're going to have a lot of other problems that are going to visit themselves upon you. And those problems that visit themselves upon you, they're never going to leave you alone. And Shaitan is going to insinuate something else to you, and you're going to get lost in that. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of other issues that are going to terrorize your mind, and you're always going to be in a state of fear. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't live in an area where you control the food supply, you don't control the food chain, there's only so much you're responsible for. You're responsible for the apparent, what is naturally occurring. You're not responsible for 4%, 5%, 3%, 2%, 1%. You can't live in that world. You just can't. Not in Dar al-Kufr, because you don't control anything. You just don't. And because you don't control anything, you have to live in the conditions that you face at the time.
Right.
And that's why this sit down that we're having is so significant, because it's to give people a better understanding of how they might live and how they might be in a better state and how they might be able to live and navigate life better. We're not talking about going out and discarding halal and haram. We're talking about, when dealing with contaminants and istibdaal, moving with intelligence based upon evidences I've quoted, legitimate scholars that I've cited, and real life situations that I've given for the case of Omar radiallahu anhu and others. Right? These are clear situations, and we must live by that standard. So when someone sees E numbers on a product, it's like, okay, well, the E numbers, they're always listed at the end of the general products, which means they're far below any percentage that is perceivable by the threshold of the tongue or what have you.
Not the first. They're not from the first five.
Yeah, they're not from those things. So they're not going to have a direct impact.
So with this particular principle in mind that you quoted from this book, can we then eat this particular product without researching any of the products, since they're
we don't have to, because it's such a small amount. It's no longer an issue for us. Now, someone said this to me once. They said, "Oh, well, you wouldn't say that if someone took an eye drop of urine and put it in a glass of water." Well, that's because the urine's permeating all the water. And I cited the same hadith. I said, but what's more, I said, I'm going to play your game. I'm going to be double technical. I said, actually, you're having you're drinking, whenever you drink water, you're drinking urine and dinosaurs every day. Do you know what the hydrocycle is?
Oh.
So we urinate and defecate. That urine and feces goes into the environment. It breaks down everything else. It gets evaporated, goes up into the air. It comes down as rain and everything else. Exactly. That's what Istibdaal. Contaminants being related to Istibdaal, which is what I've been talking about. Now, you know, and I know, when the rain comes down, can you smell urine or feces in the rain? No. Can you smell dinosaurs in the rain? Has anyone ever has a massive foot ever come down to the sky and crush someone in rain? No, because what's happened is those contaminants have undergone such a process that they've ceased being those things. Yeah, maybe if you really analyze it on a subatomic level, maybe you might find, but it's gone through that process. This naturally occurs. It's in nature. Contaminants will undergo istibdal. There's a relationship between contaminants and istibdal. That relationship is there.
And Sheikh, but the example that you cited, the first two generations, where pork rennet was in cheese with Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Now, this was not necessarily a contaminant, was it? What was it?
Well, it is. It's because it's not something that you'd eat. You don't eat pork.
No,
you don't want to eat it. But it's a contaminant. But it's a contaminant because it was added after it was all prepared. It was solid, so it's not permeated the whole product. But it's a contaminant, and it says, but it's a small amount. It just happens to look like more because it adds color. It's a contaminant. It's after the fact, and you can't separate it. Can you separate cheddar cheese's color from the cheddar cheese? No, can't. Can you separate blue cheese's pale color from the blue cheese? No. Any more than if you're wearing red socks, can I separate the red color from the socks? No. It's now there.
So even when we're talking about the contaminants, the pork rennet was it like added by nature? Because the things you mentioned were like
it was added by them.
Right.
The Iranians added it.
So it still remains a contaminant, even though it was not like happening by nature itself.
Yeah, it's a contaminant.
Okay,
it's a contaminant, whether it's added by people or it's leaves that fall into water. Because the same thing in books of fiqh, in the opening to Zad al-Mustaqni', it talks about contaminants that may fall into water like leaves and everything else, and what part that plays. Right? Those things are all true. It's contaminants and istibdal. That relation, to understand that, some scholars don't grant the principle of istibdal with regards to contaminants. That's a real serious issue.
Indeed.
In Dar al-Kufr. And that's why you get brothers that come out with books like The Muslim Food Guide. Because the brothers that did that book do not grant the principle of istibdal with regards to contaminants. And every year that book gets bigger.
Exactly.
I remember when that book, because I first saw it on the West Coast, that book was subhanAllah. Must have been 12 pages.
Okay.
12 pages. I don't know how big it is now, but it must be huge.
It is huge, because I've seen these massive lists going around on the internet, massive lists of products, so much ingredients. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, a brother came to me once and said, "Oh, we can't drink Ribena now." I was like, "Well, I don't really drink it." But he's like, "Yeah, but we can't though. Why? Because it's got alcohol in it." I said, "Have you seen Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola?" What are you talking about? I said, "There's an alcohol catalyst used to give them all the fizz." I said, "Really? Don't drink any of it." If we're going to adopt that attitude, then don't drink any soft drinks. Then we have to start saying, "Do you like cinnamon rolls? Do you like donuts? Wait a minute, what? Yeah, do you like donuts? Do you like cinnamon rolls? Yeah. Let me talk to you about the frosting. No, Ahi, don't talk to me about the frosting. No, we talk about the frosting, contaminants, and Istibdaal. I want to talk to you about the frosting and cinnamon rolls. I want to talk to you about the frosting or the glaze that's on pastries at your favorite store that you buy them from in the morning. So you have a donut while you're reading your newspaper. I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about the newspaper that you're reading. And you know the ink that you read when you get the ink that you get on your fingers? Well, I want to talk about what's in that ink that rubs off on your fingers. I want to change your life. Because the ideas that you have about the world that you live in Dar al-Kufr, that you can just live in this closed enclave where the kuffar never affect you. You eat every day. They control your food supply, Akhi, and your water supply. You're not separate from them in totality. You live among them. That's the reality. You're separate from them in your deen. They control the water supply. They control the food supply, the medical supplies. You have to look into this stuff. People are just now thinking about, what about vaccination? What, this now just crossed your mind? You eat every day. So you think that they're putting poison in your vaccinations, but not your food, which you eat every single day. And you drink your water. It's just, but it's the conspiracy theories. Yeah, all the medicine is a secret, Kabbalistic, Jewish George Soros inspired plan. Well, my food, that's good though. Oh, okay. So they never try to poison your food.
Would have been easier.
Yeah, it would have been easier to kill you. We'll just put it in your food and your drink. That's smarter. Because people have always had a natural aversion to needles and things, because they're just like, well, I don't know you, I don't trust you, or whatever. I don't know. Nah, I'm good. But you put it in their food, everyone's got to eat every day. Yes. Later on, I'm going to eat. That's the reality. You have to eat, you have to drink every day. Then after that, you either expectorate or you defecate or you urinate, and the process continues. But we have to realize that fact. When living in Dar al-Kufr, there's certain adjustments that you have to make, because there's certain things that you don't control. One of them is the food and water supply. You do not control it. So what adjustments then do you make in light of this new knowledge? With regards to what you eat in a day, with regards to the breakfast that you have. Okay, well, I'm only going to go to a halal shop. Okay, that's fine. All right, that's fine. Let's say you say, all right, listen, Brother Abu Ja'far, you scared me to death. I'm never going to a Kafir grocery store again. Okay, that's fine. All right. Are you going to buy canned goods from the halal shop? Oh, Akhi, don't start that again. No. Listen, we have to have this conversation. Because if you buy canned goods from the halal shop from Bulgaria, does Bulgaria follow the EU law? Because if they do, they have to spray the preservative inside of the cans before they put the items in there to preserve it. When they put the corn in the container, are they using benzoate? Yes, they are. Okay, I can talk to you about what's in benzoate. You gonna eat that? Is that haram now? Okay, all right, fine. I'm not eating anything canned. I'm down to pasta, chicken. We're down to pasta, poultry, beef, and water. All right. Where'd you get this bottled water from? What? Yeah, listen. Before they put that water in the container, there's a preservative that goes in the container to keep the water from becoming stale. No, yes. Go take a look. So when you're drinking your Caledonian or your Avion or your other stuff, there's a preservative to make sure that the water, it doesn't, And if it's plastic as well, let's say they don't put the preservative in there. The plastic still has to have a preservative in it to keep the plastic so it keeps the same body, it keeps the same shape. Right. That's still a little bit of that's going to go in the water though. So is that haram? I mean, how far do we want to go? You don't control. Yes, okay. If you just go to a halal shop, you and I make a blood oath. We slice our hands open and we shake hands and say, "That's it now. We're blood brothers, brother Iskandar, brother Mujaffar. We shall not ever go to a haram shop. We're only going to a Muslim shop." Okay. Now listen, that will give us greater control. It will, but we still are here. So there'll still be some things that we can't avoid. And when you import stuff into the country, because the stuff that comes from our Muslim countries, I'm sure you have certain English foods that you eat that you have to import. Now, in order for those things to be imported, they might require them to follow certain EU guidelines for packaging, for canning, and other stuff. Now, if you start to follow that chain up the line, you might find some things that you're not happy with. But are you responsible for that? Well, Omar and the Sahaba, when they went to Iran, they said no. Imam Ahmed, he said no. So Imam Ahmed said no. And the Malikis and the bigger, they say no. Okay, then. That's all we're saying. That's all I'm saying. And all they're saying is just think about it. Just be wise and think about it. Because the way that you've been doing things, it's one way, but it's not the only way. And if you decide to go down the track that you're going down, and we put your stringencies to the test, you're going to find that you've painted yourself in a corner. That's all we're saying. So rather than go through that hassle, we're saying this is here in case you find yourself in this situation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling anybody who's better and who's worse, or you don't know, or you're so terrible. No, it's understand this is what we're dealing with regard to the food supply.